Secondary is the balance of trade, which is not in our favor. Now we try to get over this by international borrowings. Now that is also going out. So now we have to look at economic growth. We are on our own. I think this is the only way Sri Lanka is going to have growth. So firstly, we have to have a very competitive economy and we have to reach out. This is why we are having trade agreements. We've even applied to join RCEP. We are having trade agreements we are negotiating with India, China. We've finished with Singapore. We are about to conclude with Thailand. We'll have to go back to EU to deepen our trade relations. So these are some of the issues we have. That it means our economy must be more competitive. Secondly, it has to be digitalized. And I'm forming the Digital Transformation Agency to handle it, together with a center for research on AI. So this will have a plan to digitalize the country in a given period once they start functioning. Then we also have to comply now with the requirements of the net zero plan and the green economy. So we have to be a green economy. Then finally, we have to go for growth and we have to start working on it now. We are already studying it. First, look at the low-hanging fruit. Let's go there. There are other areas like we can get foreign investment, different areas. Somehow it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I've seen how it worked when we were there in 1977. So first go for the low-hanging fruit, one of which is basically tourism. Tourism this year will get half of what we got in 2018, but next year we'll get the full amount, and thereafter we can start increasing the rates, but to do so we need a good product, and that's been discussed now with the industry. Secondly is agriculture. We have not exploited the agricultural potential, we have written it off, but with our land available, we should go in for modern agriculture, use modern technology and highly competitive agriculture, which will enable us to go in for exports. For this reason, we will improve the productivity in paddy, enabling us to release some of the lands in the wet zone, and secondly, look at about another 400,000 acres which can be brought out in cultivation, including system A and B of Mahavalley, which could not be done due to the war. So this is some of the areas of agriculture. But there will be people who can do half acre of agriculture with the new technology. That also should be encouraged. Then we are looking at renewable energy, because Sri Lanka's potential for renewable energy has not been assessed yet. We are satisfied that we have enough for the net zero scenario, but if you look at it, we will have about 40 gigawatts of wind and about 200 gigawatts of solar without counting rooftops. If you count that, it can be 300 to 400. So bulk of it can be used certainly for export purposes, including selling to India. This means that there are people from abroad who are willing to invest in large projects, and that large projects means billions of dollars coming into Sri Lanka as investment. Then we must also go into the whole field of IT and everything that's built on it. For that we have to establish more training institutes, which can be done by the private sector. We can always fund the students who go there. Another issue is going to be artificial intelligence. So we put aside about 1.5 billion rupees to start our research and development on artificial intelligence. So there are many other areas like Sri Lanka becoming a regional logistic hub, the new industries that will come in, there will be new technologies coming in, but these are the 4 areas. Finally, we have to go for growth. It's only growth that will get us out of the economic crisis we are in. Otherwise, in another 10 years, the latest, we'll be back here again. Next time, there won't be the help we got this time, and we'll be in an eternal mess. So it's a challenge for Sri Lanka. And in this, the Inland Revenue Department and the other revenue departments have a big role to play. Because as we grow, we have to ensure that all that is due to the government comes to the government, and the rest is done. So it's a complex situation, I know, but nevertheless, it's a challenge we can take and a challenge we can win. So I thought of informing all of you so that we will know the path we have to travel in the next 5-6 years.
19 වෙනි සංවත්සරය ඔබතුමාලාගේ තාමත් වැදගත් අවස්ථාවක්. රාජ්‍ය නායකයාට සහභාගී වීම මම දකින හරි වැදගත්. ඔබතුමාලා සුවිශාල අභියෝගයක් බාරගත්ත සමාජ කණ්ඩායමක්. දැන් මේ දවස්වල වැඩිම කතා වෙන මාතෘකා තමයි රාජ්‍ය ආදායම ඒහා සමග බැඳුණු බදු. ඉතින් මේවා එකතු කරන අය කවදාවත් ජනප්‍රිය මිනිස්සු වෙන්නේ නැහැ මම දකින්නේ. බොහෝ නිලයන් හරි ජනප්‍රියයිනේ. හුඟක් අය කියන්නේ අපි බැලුවොත් වෛද්‍ය වෘත්තිය බැලුවොත් අර දොස්තර මහත්තයා අපේ දරුවා ගොඩ දාලා දැම්මා කියනවා. ගුරු වෘත්තිය බැලුවත් එහෙමයි. හැබැයි කවදාවත් රාජ්‍ය ආදායම හොයන කෙනෙක් අපි ගොඩ දාලා දැම්මා කියලා කියන්නේ නැහැ. ඔබතුමාලා හරියට බදු එකතු කරොත් ඒකේ අනිත් පැත්ත තමයි ඔබතුමාලාට ලැබෙන්නේ. හැබැයි මේ එකතු කරන දෙයින් තමයි අර සියල්ලම වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ වගේ කාලයක මෙහි තියෙන අභියෝගය වෙනදාටත් වඩා වැඩි. අපි තාම පීඩාවටපත් වෙච්ච සමාජයකින් තමයි මේ ටික එකතු කරන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම අපි සාම්ප්‍රදායික කණ්ඩායමක් එක්ක පාර්ලිමේන්තුව බැලුවත්, විපක්ෂය බැලුවත්, ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂය බැලුවත්, විවිධ ආංශික කාරක සභා බැලුවත් තාමත් මේ දැන් මේ 7.3% තිබුණු බදු ආදායම දැන් මේ කියුණා වාගේ 12ට ගිහිල්ලා 15ට ඇරයි යන එක විශාල අභියෝගයක්. හැබැයි මේ අභියෝගය කවුරු හරි බාර ගන්න ඕනේ. ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඒකට සුවිශේෂී නායකත්වයක් දුන්නා. කවුරුත් බාර නොගත්තී. හැබැයි දැන් මේ අභියෝගයේ ජය ගැනීම දිහා අර සාම්ප්‍රදායික සමාජය තාමත් බලන්නේ සාම්ප්‍රදායික විවේචන තුලින්. විපක්ෂයට වෙන හොඳ විවේචන තියෙනවා මේවට. කවුරුත් කැමති නෑනේ තමන්ගේ අතින් යමක් යනවට. ඉතින් මම දකිනවා මේ විවේචන මේ සාම්ප්‍රදායික සමාජය එක්ක තමයි අපිට මේ කටයුතු කරන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඔබතුමාලා බදු ආදායමට ළඟා වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි ඒවා රටට ගැළපෙන විදිහට අපේ ඉලක්ක වෙනස් කරලා දුන්නා. ඒවා ඉක්මවා ගිහින් තියෙනවා. අපි ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. හැබැයි අපිට මේ මම දකිනවා විශාල ගමනක් යන්න තියෙනවා. ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ පැහැදිලි ඉලක්කයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ඉලක්කය දේශපාලනයට වඩා ගිය පළල් වූ ජාතික ඉලක්කයක්. අපි කවුරු හරි මේක මේ රට ශක්තිමත් ආර්ථිකයක් තියෙන රට බවට පත් කරන්න අවශ්‍යයි. එතනදී ඔබතුමාලාට පැවරෙන වගකීම ඉතාමත්ම බැරෑරුම් වගකීමක්. දේශීය ආදායම් බදු දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව කියන්නේ රාජ්‍ය ආදායමෙන් භාගයක් හොයලා දෙන කණ්ඩායම ඊටත් වැඩි. ඒ සියලු දෙනා මෙහෙවන්නේත් කොමසාරිස්වරුන්. ඒ නිසාම මේ ඉතාම වගකිය යුතු රාජකාරියක් ඔබතුමාලාට පැවරෙනවා. අපි වෙනස්කමුත් අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා තව. ඔබතුමාලාගේ මාත් සමග පැවති සාකච්ඡාවෙදී අපි මේ ගැන අපේ දැනුමත් එකතු කරගන්න ඇමතිතුමා කියලා. ජනාධිපතිතුමාට සූදානම්. ලබන ජනවාරි වල ආරම්භ වෙනකොටම ඔබතුමාලා සමගත් සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. ඔබතුමාලා දැනුම අත්දැකීම බලාපොරොත්තු මේ සියල්ලමත් මේකට වැදගත්. හැබැයි වෙනසක් අවශ්‍යයි. ඒ වෙනස අපිට පෙන්වා දෙන්න නායකයෙක් සූදානම් වෙනවා. ඒක ඔබතුමාලාට රටට අපේ අනාගතයට බොහොම වැදගත්. ඒ නිසා අපි ධෛර්යයෙන් යුතුව ගමන යමු. අද අර මම කිව්වාගේ ඔබතුමාලා අද ජනප්‍රිය නොවුණාට ඉතිහාසයේ ජනප්‍රිය වේවි. මේ අභියෝග බාර ගන්න සියලු දෙනාම ගැන ඉතිහාසයේ කවදා හරි කතා කරાવી. මෙහෙම වැටුණු රටක් නැගිට්ටවපු නායකයෙක් ඊට අතහිත දුන් මිනිස්සු. ඒක දේශපාලනය නෙවෙයි. ඊට වඩා එහා ගිය පළල් ජාතික වගකීමක්. අන්නේ සඳහා අපි සියලු දෙනා කැපෙමු.
The IRD and its senior officers in particular have one of the most important responsibilities in driving Sri Lanka's economic recovery. The fundamental cause of the recent economic crisis and structural economic vulnerabilities in Sri Lanka are predominantly due to weak fiscal structure. Persistent budget deficits accumulated to result in unsustainable public debt, which was neglected for many decades, eventually culminating in a sovereign debt crisis. Therefore, to address the root cause of the crisis, the government must bridge these long-standing budget deficits. Whilst the government is taking substantial efforts to streamline government expenditure, we all are aware that expenditure is largely rigid in nature. Recurrent expenditure items including public sector salaries, pensions, essential welfare payments and interest costs cannot be easily reduced in short term. These few items alone significantly exceeds government revenues. Therefore, fiscal consolidation must be led by revenue-based measures. The government has now put in place the appropriate tax policy structure. Corporate tax rates have been unified at 30%. Personal income tax rates have been adjusted. VAT exemptions are being streamlined and excise duties have been adjusted to account for recent inflation. We must also acknowledge the fact that these necessary increases in tax rates have created additional economic pressures on the citizenry who are already under strain due to effects of the economic crisis. The pressures on those who are complain can be eased if the tax base can be widened such that all those who should pay taxes do pay tax. These policy measures theoretically should be able to allow Sri Lanka to comfortably exceed the government revenues of 15% of the GDP. It is now up to all of us to focus on tax administration and tax compliance to take us from a revenue to GDP level of just over 10% to 15% and above. The legislative framework has been put in place to support this, with the Inland Revenue Act amendments earlier this year supporting measures such as mandatory exchange of data between institutions, but it needs to be strengthened. The government has also provided financial support to ensure upgrades for the IT system such as REMIS. The budget has also proposed a number of measures to make the tax identification number necessary for critical transactions. The IRD and its senior officers now have the crucial responsibility of ensuring compliances through optimizing tax administration. Initiatives such as a focus on risk-based audits, on-time filing, digitization of tax returns, enhanced data analytics must now take on a heightened sense of urgency. The Ministry of Finance stands ready to support all initiatives to ensure that those who should be paying taxes are indeed paying tax. Once tax compliance measures improve, resulting in higher revenue collection and enabling revenue targets to be met, it would be possible to provide some relief to the citizenry in terms of tax rates. On the other hand, if we fail to boost government revenue to required rates to support the government's cash flow needs, we would no doubt see a return to the crisis situation in the country faced just over a year ago. In fact, the next time around the crisis would be far from worse, since the country lacks economic buffers and it is unlikely that the international community will be willing to come to our aid again if we fail to get our house in order. In this context, the commissioners of the IRD have a critical role to play in sustainability of the Sri Lanka's economic recovery. The Ministry of Finance, with the guidance of His Excellency the President and the entire government, will provide you with the fullest backing, but the country relies on you and expects you to discharge your responsibilities with the highest level of diligence and focus. Thank you.
මෙවැනි උණුසුම් පුවත් වීඩියෝ කාටත් කලින් දිනපතා දැනගන්න බෙල් සලකුණ ඔබ SL Breaking සබ්ස්ක්‍රයිබ් කරන්න.